What's up guys, it's Avery here. Today I'm going to talk about the story of my first rental property and all of the numbers associated with it. And it currently makes me $1,100 a month in cash flow. And no, I'm not talking about the type of cash flow that you talk about on podcasts to make yourself seem really cool. And it has also increased $175,000 in value since I first purchased it 2 years ago. And while all of these numbers sound really cool, and I'm going to get into all of those details in the entire story, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows. All right, let's jump right in. But first, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do so and tap that notification bell so you don't miss out on any tips for investing in real estate and learning how to build your wealth. And stick around for the full story of my investment property and the numbers associated with it and how I was able to purchase it only 8 months after graduating college. Pretty simply, when I wanted to buy my first rental property, I wanted to house hack. And if you're unfamiliar with that, you go buy a house and then you rent out the excess space. Instead of living the American dream and getting into an excess amount of debt and being tied to the bank because you bought your dream home, you instead live in that home virtually rent-free, make a ton of monies, and then you have a rental property because you can move out 1 year later. The reason that I wanted a house hack was because you could put 3.5% down versus the traditional 25% for an investment property that you don't plan on living in and that you fully rent out right away. And 3.5% down versus 25% down in a market where the homes were between $500,000 and $1 million for what I was looking for is a huge chunk of money. That was the difference between $18,000 all the way up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if I could put a lot less money down and then only have to live there for a year, that made a lot of sense to me. So bing bang bada boom. I knew what I was doing, house hack, 3.5% down, made total sense. Now the easy part, finding the property. Not really, that part is a lot harder. Finding the deal is always the most difficult thing. But in December of 2018, I went and saw the property that I was eventually going to purchase. And at the time, I was interested in the property because it was the cheapest one in the area and I could potentially afford it, but it was fully tenanted and one of the tenants was paying $1,000 less than what market rent was. Now, that might sound like a really awesome idea and thing to you guys because you can increase the rent $1,000, but in reality, when it hits you hard, that's not really what happens. Typically, if you're trying to increase someone's rent $1,000, that is not going to go over very well, especially in a tenant-friendly state. You're most likely going to have an eviction and you're going to lose multiple months of rent. So I wasn't really excited to do that for my first property. So I passed on it, eventually got a cash buyer who came in at $535. It was accepted. They pulled out because they couldn't get their funds in order. And then a couple of months later, because I was networking a ton, the real estate agent who had listed that property reached out to me because we forged a relationship and said, hey, do you want to buy this before I put it back on market? And I said, well, what about the upstairs tenant? And they said, well, because the cash buyer wanted it delivered vacant, they're actually gone. So to me, this was a golden opportunity. But my pre-approval was only for $525,000 for a duplex. And he said, it doesn't matter. They're looking to get it sold as fast as possible and they'll accept that. And they did, and it was really awesome. So I was super excited to finally get into that first property. And then we went through the inspection process, and because there were a couple of issues with the home, I was able to negotiate another $7,000 off of the price. Now, I didn't just take it from $525 to $518, but I took a $7,000 closing credit, which is awesome because you basically just get a $7,000 check to pay towards all of your closing costs. And if that was over the closing costs, then you could use that for whatever you want. But it wasn't over the closing costs, so it paid a lot of that, but basically put an extra $7,000 back in my pocket that I was going to have to pay. So with that $525,000 loan, that would amount to a $3,307 mortgage. And I didn't want to pay that myself every month, just like you would assume. So I got on it really quickly, and because it was the cheapest multifamily property in the area, you guessed it, it was a hunk of And yes, it was pretty gross, and there was literal all the way through it. Not human, at least it was mouse poop. So that was slightly better depending on how you want to think about it. But it wasn't something that I wanted to rent out to someone, nor was it a place that I wanted to live in myself yet. So I renovated my own unit, went on YouTube, figured out a bunch of DIY stuff, how to do things, and I swapped out the gross flooring, painted everything. Mia helped me, it was very awesome. Cleaned everything up, and then I had a contractor do the work upstairs simultaneously that was pretty similar to what I was doing, so I could get it rented out right away. So initially with that $3,307 a month payment, I was projecting that I would make around $300 to $400 in cash flow after looking all of expenses like vacancy, maintenance, repairs, capital expenditures, all of those necessary things that come about when you own rental property. It's not just rent minus the mortgage. And so I figured $300 to $400, that's pretty cool. But what ended up happening was when I was living there, I got Mia to live with me, so she was paying $400, and then I also got a roommate, and he was paying $800. So I had $1,200 from my unit specifically. So that $1,200 was already knocked off of that $3,307 amount. So I was feeling a lot better already. And then I was able to rent out the upstairs 4-bedroom, and I got $2,400 for that. So if you can do some quick maths in your head, $1,200, $2,400, that's $3,600. And $3,600, by my calculations, is a bit greater than $3,307. So while I was living in the property, I was getting almost $300 over the mortgage every single month that could go towards that mortgage as well as hold some money back for expenses. So I was living for free and all of my expenses were accounted for. Now, I would say that's a golden ticket, absolute home run, and I was very excited that I executed the house hacking strategy to perfection. Fast forward about a year, time had gone on, the market had appreciated, I had done the work that I had done, so I increased the value in the home that way, and now the home was worth more because that's typically how real estate is. As time goes on, the value of your building typically goes up, especially when you do increased value adds to it like I did with all of the renovations. So now I wanted to refinance so that I could get an FHA loan back so I could do it all over again, because you can only have one FHA loan in your name at a time. So that's what I did. I refinanced the property, and when I refinanced, rates had gone down significantly. So when I first bought the home, my interest rate was 4.125%, which at the time was a pretty sweet rate. But I refinanced in March of 2020 when rates started to go down, and they've gone down a lot more since then, but I got it at 3.375. So I went from a $3,307 monthly mortgage payment to a $2,850 mortgage payment. That's $450 in savings. That's insane. That's already $800 of cash flow, which is $400 or $500 more than I anticipated when I was first running my numbers. So I was already super excited. Next, what happened is because I had Section 8 tenants, and if you want to learn more about Section 8, check the video up here or down below, but essentially those are government-assisted housing payments where the tenant has some sort of housing assistance, and then instead of the tenant getting that money and then paying you, the government pays you directly. And so the tenant's rent was $2,400, and I asked for an increase to $2,600. Now, Section 8 has an interesting way of determining what the amount your rent should be for your apartment. I won't get into it in this video, but instead of giving me $2,600, they gave me $2,880, which is $280 more than I asked for. And if you remember what my new mortgage is, it went from $3,307 to $2,850, and now my tenant is paying $2,880, guaranteed from the government, $30 over the mortgage. You can already see that this is a pretty darn good investment. So around the same time, I was planning on moving out, reusing that FHA loan so that I could buy another property, which is exactly what I did, and I'm sitting in it now. But enough of that, back to the first rental property. So I moved out and then I got a tenant in for $1,800. So now I have $1,800 from the 2-bedroom, $2,880 from the 4-bedroom, and my mortgage was $2,850. So I have the $2,880 plus $1,800, which would be $4,380 minus $2,850 is a particular number. I don't have it off the top of my head. And then I account for about $750 of expenses every single month, which would lead to just under $1,100 in cash flow. Now, that's pretty cool. And at the same time, I'm not just now getting cash flow from this property, which is pretty sweet, and I can recycle it to new properties that I want to buy, as well as my increased savings and adding more and more money to different investments, but the value of the property increases. So when I refinanced, it was at $595,000, which if you remember, I originally bought it for $525,000 with that $7,000 closing credit. And fast forward about a year later, which is today, it is now worth $700,000. So from $525,000 to $700,000, that is a $175,000 increase in price. Now, COVID and a lot of what's going on in the housing market has pushed that so high, but it still is a crazy amount of appreciation, which is standard with how much things have appreciated in the Boston area because it's such a strong market. So I have this really awesome appreciation, I have really good cash flow, and eventually I'll be able to tap into the equity of this property and use it to buy other properties with something like a home equity line of credit or a cash out refinance. So the title of this video correct, this one investment gets me $1,100 a month and made me almost $200,000 richer, which is pretty cool in 2 years. And it doesn't seem like I've done a crazy amount of work. Yes, I put in a lot of effort to educate myself, listen to podcasts, and get really comfortable with the idea of real estate investing. Took the plunge, spent a majority of my money getting everything going, but that's what happens when you want to get something done and you want to take a couple of risks. At the time, it really didn't feel risky because I did my homework. And the point of this story isn't to brag about myself and tell you how great I am, and to get you to smash the like button and subscribe and share this video with all of your friends, even though I know you're already doing all that stuff. It's just to tell you that it's very possible. I was making $65,000 a year at the time that I acquired that specific property. That's not a crazy high income. Yes, it's higher than a lot of other people's, but I live in a high cost of living area. You could find homes in these specific duplexes or various investment properties that are worth a lot less money, somewhere in the $100,000 to $200,000 range, where you can do the exact same thing, but with a lot less money and still make a lot of money as well. So really, real estate investing has changed my life and my outlook on how I want to live my life. And this specific property itself, if I waited 10 years, would probably make me a millionaire alone without me doing anything else. So I just wanted to make this video to show you how cool real estate investing is, how much it can change your life, and catapult you forward to that financial freedom goal. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for more about the specific property that I'm sitting in right now and talking about those numbers, as I'm about to move out, so I'm gonna have full-on cash flow and proper numbers for it as well. So thanks again for watching, and hope to see you guys next time.